Hello there and welcome to The Attic. I'm Lloyd Evans and today I will be doing a live stream review of Governing Body Update number 6 for 2024, which is hosted by Governing Body member Gage Fleegle, a bearded Governing Body member Gage Fleegle, no less. It seems they're all at it now, all of the Governing Body members, now that they've given themselves permission to grow beards. They're all at it, so that's interesting. But we do have 13 minutes of update to get through. Let's get the video up.
They were held in Philadelphia, United States.
I need to reverse it because we just missed the intro. My apologies.
Welcome, brothers and sisters. Since our last report, we've had 7 more special conventions. They were held in Philadelphia, United States, Sofia, Bulgaria, Suva, Fiji, Lyon, France, Asunción, Paraguay, Tampa, United States, Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. More than 16,000 delegates traveled from 101 countries to attend these conventions. There was a combined peak attendance of over 98,000, and 859 were baptized. In Paraguay, there are currently about 11,500 publishers. Nearly 2,000 delegates were invited to attend the special convention. Remarkably, though, the peak attendance was 28,617. Clearly, there's much potential for growth. In fact, 293 were baptized at this convention alone. That's the largest baptism at one location in the history of our work in Paraguay.
Okay, I'm going to start off my comments by saying something positive about Gage Fleegle. And that's that I was genuinely impressed with his pronunciation of all of those different places. I mean, that's actually more than I would do. I would just say Paraguay, but he says Paraguay, which is genuinely impressive. So that's a plus point. But I guess I have to call him out on this cherry picking of stats. So he's starting off by talking about special conventions. And if you don't know what a special convention is, Jehovah's Witnesses have their annual conventions. I've obviously done rebuttals to all 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They're up on my channel if you want to watch them or if you haven't watched them before. If you want to get the chance to not only attend a convention, but see a governing body member, then you go to a special convention, which are hosted at certain locations around the world. That's what he's talking about. And he's talking about the fact that for the Paraguay convention, they had some impressive statistics in terms of the number of attendees, which surpassed their expectations. But what he's doing is glossing over the disappointing statistics. I mean, I actually went to the trouble of looking up the statistics for Paraguay, and interestingly, they've had a decrease for 2 consecutive years in the number of publishers. He actually says that in Paraguay they have about 11,500 publishers. He says about. Well, it's actually more precise than that if you look up the 2023 service report, which is the last full service report that we have, public access to or widespread access to. That lists the number of publishers as 10,932 average publishers. The peak was 11,042, so it seems he's kind of blurring peak and average. But in any case, the published figure for Paraguay was 10,932. The year before it was 10,996, and the year before that 11,180. So Paraguay has actually lost over the last 2 years 248 publishers. So, a bit of context, please. if you're going to rave about how amazing your special convention was in this particular country, maybe a little bit of context would be appreciated. And I must just thank all of you who are commenting. Hey, love your channel, says Anaya's Mimi. Nice to see Donietta. I think Donietta was the first person in the live chat. Johnny says, hey Lloyd, much love from Texas. Calidora Reyes says, sweet, I haven't made it to a live stream in a while. Well, to be fair, I haven't done many live streams, but I am trying to fix that. I am trying to do more live streams moving forward. So if this particular live stream is a hit in terms of views, maybe I'll do regular governing body update live streams. Who knows? And Simon Instone, this made me chuckle. I must shave immediately. Yeah, that was kind of the thing that you would do if you were a guy upon becoming apostate and upon leaving, is you would grow a beard because suddenly you had permission. So now the governing body members are all growing beards. It's kind of not cool to have a beard anymore. we all have to shave our beards. I like that. So let's continue, shall we, with the video, if I can find the right button. Here we are. Speak to me, Gage.
Jehovah has truly blessed these special conventions. 2 more remain for 2024, and we look forward to 19 special conventions for the 2025 series. Here's a brief legal update. On September 17th, 2024, the 17 judges of the Grand Chamber of the European Court of Human Rights ruled in favor of Sister Pindo Mudia, who was given blood transfusions in Spain against her wishes. Despite our sister's clear oral and written refusal, a judge in Spain allowed doctors to proceed. The Grand Chamber concluded that this violated her rights. It confirmed that patients have the fundamental right to choose their own medical care. What makes this decision especially significant is that it was issued by the Grand Chamber of the European Court of Human Rights. The Grand Chamber issues decisions only when a case is considered to be groundbreaking. Thus, this decision obligates 46 countries in Europe to respect patients' healthcare choices. We're grateful to the Grand Chamber for this decision. Above all, we thank Jehovah for this legal victory, which will benefit all of our brothers and sisters in Europe as they make informed medical decisions. This significant ruling reminds us how vital it is to discuss our personal medical choices with our doctor and to put these choices in writing, just as our faithful sister did.
Yeah, so look, I have nuanced thoughts on this. I guess I agree with the findings of the European Court of Human Rights here. It's absolutely important that patients' rights should be respected. It's obviously a little bit nuanced because you could argue that Pindo Mudia wasn't fully informed in making her decision and was in fact under a degree of undue influence, because what most people don't know when it comes to the blood issue is that Jehovah's Witnesses are literally threatened with being thrown out if they willingly and unrepentantly accept a blood transfusion. So when Gage Fleegle talks about personal medical choices, and he talks about respecting patients' healthcare choices, I'm not sure he has a great deal of freeness of speech there, because I don't think that he respects people's individual choices, because he is part of a leadership that threatens people with family estrangement if they make the wrong personal medical choices. So it's a nuanced subject. Again, correct decision by the European Court of Human Rights. Although I will just note that isn't it interesting that when a decision goes their way, in terms of a legal decision, or a government ruling or whatever, they will broadcast it on their channel and on JW Broadcasting. But when something negative happens, when there is a negative finding, such as with the New Zealand child abuse inquiry, we hear crickets, we hear nothing, just tumbleweed. And also, I've just written down in my notes, good things, bad things, because it's a good things, bad things situation again, isn't it? I made a song a number of years ago now, which is again on the channel, about this kind of hypocrisy of Jehovah's Witnesses when it comes to pointing to positive developments as evidence of Jehovah's backing, and then if something negative happens, then it's evidence of persecution. So if the European Court of Human Rights had ruled against them, they would say, well, this is persecution, and what do you expect from Satan's wicked system of things? But how do they then turn around and say that it must be Jehovah involved if an instrument of Satan's system of things, the European Court of Human Rights, rules in their favour? You cannot have it both ways. Well, you cannot have it both ways, but they frequently do like to have it both ways. So let's continue. Speak to me, Gage.
During this month, September 2024, we've all been involved in a global campaign to start Bible studies using the Enjoy Life Forever brochure. What a joy to be united with our brothers and sisters worldwide in this campaign. Note a couple of experiences. Annalore is an 84-year-old pioneer sister in Austria. Because of her health, she can't preach from door to door for long periods of time. However, she decided to offer a Bible course to people who had responded positively to her visits before. She thought of 6 people and visited them. She was very happy to demonstrate the Bible course with all 6 people. The result? All 6 agreed to continue the course in the coming days.
This sort of thing genuinely makes me chuckle because, again, it's cherry picking, but also how bad must things be if this is one of the most impressive experiences that Gage Fleegle can give us. An older Jehovah's Witness lady decides to preach to 6 people and tries to convince them to start a study with her using the Enjoy Life Forever brochure, but it's actually a book. This is just an introductory thing. She convinces 6 people, and that story is enough to make it onto JW Broadcasting Governing Body Update number 6. I mean, maybe I'm missing something here, folks, but I think there's a huge difference between persuading someone to start studying or start having conversations with Jehovah's Witnesses and them becoming Jehovah's Witnesses. There's a huge difference. And if this is one of the most impressive things that Gage Fleegle has got to tell us about the worldwide preaching work, you have to ask, how bad is it really, you know? And there's going to be another example of that coming up.
In the Philippines, while witnessing from house to house, 2 publishers approached a woman named Josie who was doing laundry in front of her apartment. Since Josie was busy, she told the publishers to talk instead to her adult son and nephew who were inside. Using the direct approach, the publishers started a Bible study right away with both the son and the nephew. As the Bible study was being demonstrated, Josie's niece also joined in the discussion, and the publishers offered her a Bible study, which she readily accepted. Now, with 3 persons involved in the initial Bible study session, Josie became more curious and also wanted to join in the conversation. Josie, too, accepted a Bible study. However, before the 2 publishers ended the initial study session, a 5th family member, Josie's daughter, was moved to ask what they were discussing. Taking advantage of yet another opportunity, the publishers offered her a Bible study, which she immediately accepted. In all, 5 family members from one household accepted the offer to have a Bible study using the direct approach. Clearly, Jehovah has blessed our efforts to offer Bible studies during the campaign.
Clearly, clearly, these 2 examples are evidence that Jehovah is blessing the Bible study campaign. And just before I kind of reiterate what I was saying earlier, I actually endorse the direct approach. I think the direct approach is fantastic. And it was actually what I started doing when I was awakening from Jehovah's Witnesses. Because when you're a Jehovah's Witness and you start to realize that you're in a cult, you have this problem where you still have to go out preaching, at least sometimes. I mean, nowadays, they keep less of an eye on you in terms of how many hours you're doing. But, you know, when I was exiting, it was a real difficulty that I had to, you know, commit to walking around strangers' houses with somebody else and doing this token act of worship, even though I didn't believe it anymore. And my solution was to use the direct approach and just say, hey, we're Jehovah's Witnesses and we're interested in knowing, would you like to start a Bible study with us today? Knowing full well that they would say no. Now, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule, and Gage Fleegle is giving us some here from countries that have been, again, cherry-picked. I mean, we don't even know for sure, do we, if these things actually happen. But even if they did, it's worth reiterating there's a huge, huge difference between getting someone to agree to meet with you again to discuss part of this brochure and actually persuading someone to become one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I think Gage's enthusiasm is a little bit misplaced here.
But we want to continue to focus on starting Bible studies.
Sorry, I'm just gonna pause because we do have a lot of chats, live chats coming in, and I think it's important to show them. Matthew there says, "So great to see you, Lloyd. Hello from Phoenix." We have Baby Doll. I think this is awesome because people can now have dialogue with you in real time. Thank you, Baby Doll. Reasonable to conclude says, numbers don't lie, but you can lie with numbers. Definitely lots of cherry picking going on. And I'm going to get into more of that as this particular update unfolds. Because, yeah, I'll explain later. Movie Man 96 says, still waiting for the Australian Royal Commission legal update. Very true. They only seem to want to give legal updates when it's legal developments that have gone in their favour. Reasonable to conclude says the governing body are hypocrites. They demand Jehovah's Witness organisation to have options, but they themselves do not give publishers the options to choose to have blood transfusions. I think that's a really important point that you make there, reasonable to conclude. It's something that I keep trying to stress whenever I'm talking about the blood issue, because I don't think enough people understand that when Jehovah's Witnesses jump up and down about patient rights and having the freedom to make personal choices, it's a load of nonsense, because you cannot call it a personal choice if there is any kind of threat or coercion involved. So I do completely agree with you. Sebastian says, as long as this organisation is shunning, a choice is not free. Same point there. Very much agree with you. Daniela Sherman says, thank you, Lloyd. Lots of love from the Netherlands. Thank you so much, Daniela. Movie Man 96 says, I saw him, I think that's Gage Fleegle, at an SKE graduation. He's just as fake as Let. I was sort of willing to give him a bit of a bit of a fair crack at the whip when he first joined the governing body, but increasingly I'm getting bad vibes about him, to be completely honest. It's interesting that with his beard now, he more closely resembles Mark Sanderson. He's like a slim version of Mark Sanderson, if I can say that. And I'm getting similar kind of megalomaniac vibes. He does seem to be very, very prominent, doesn't he, nowadays, in almost being like the face of the organization in a similar way that Let used to be. Used to be that Let kind of almost had the most airtime. And now it seems to be pivoting a bit more towards the newer members. And I would say, maybe it's just me, but I feel like we're seeing a lot of Gage Fleegle at the moment. And Baby Doll says, exactly, and this is why they don't want Jehovah's Witnesses watching the news now. They only want to share the good experiences, and then they sweep their garbage under the rug. Have to agree with you there. So apologies for the slightly disjointed delivery. Let's now go back to the video. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Go on, Gage.
Brothers and sisters, don't lose the momentum of this campaign. Ride the wave of enthusiasm. Continue to offer Bible studies at every appropriate opportunity. What can help us to do so? Although public witnessing is an important aspect of our ministry, and Bible studies sometimes result, we encourage all to share regularly in the house-to-house work. And remember, we'll have better results if we call at times when people are more likely to be home. This gives us more opportunities to start conversations that lead to Bible studies.
This is actually a really important point, because some of my recent videos that seem to have attracted the most views are videos where I've been talking about changes, either changes that the organization has made or changes that the organization might make in the future. Because it's breathtaking, isn't it, how many changes they've made just over the last few months. And I know among the JW Watch team, because we have our WhatsApp group, one thing that we've kind of discussed is the possibility of them completely ditching the traditional house-to-house method of preaching, which is basically what Jehovah's Witnesses are famous for all over the world, is literally going along the street and knocking on every single door that they can. And they do it so methodically that they divide every town or village or settlement into maps, and they make sure that literally every home, if possible, can be called upon, can be called on. And what we've seen over recent years is an increasing emphasis on the cart work, the public witnessing work. And we've also just in recent months seen them ditch the requirement to report your time, to report the number of hours. So you could, in theory, just do a few minutes and tick a box or say on a piece of paper, yes, I've done some preaching. So it does feel a little bit, or it did feel a little bit like Jehovah's Witnesses might be starting to distance themselves from this almost ritual of trudging around and bothering people at their homes, which can be very, very annoying, especially if it's like a Saturday morning and you're just chilling with your family or whatever, you're just minding your own business, and suddenly they're at your property. And also, if you have been a Jehovah's Witness and let's say you've moved house a few times, but they've left you with quite traumatic memories that are difficult and triggering for you, to suddenly have them show up on your doorstep, it's not very pleasant. So it's tempting to think that they could be phasing out house to house, but we've just heard here Gage Fleegle, governing body member, say you should all crack on with the house to house work. Now, it's not impossible that at some point they might get rid of the house to house work, but clearly it's not on the cards anytime soon, because I very much doubt he would have said any of that if it was a change that we could expect. So, in other words, unfortunately, it seems that Jehovah's Witnesses will be continuing with the house-to-house work for the foreseeable future.
Why not try the direct approach when it seems appropriate? While sharing in the ministry one evening, a brother in Germany spoke with a man who's about 35 years old. The brother asked him, "When did you last read the Bible?" The man replied, "This morning." They talked about why the Bible is valuable, using Micah 4:3 and 4 as an example. Then they discussed Lesson 1 of the Enjoy Life Forever brochure. The man's children were present and read the Bible verses aloud. The man agreed to start the Bible course. In addition, many have started studies by witnessing informally to relatives, neighbors, co-workers, shopkeepers, and so forth. In Tanzania, a sister named Elizabeth started 4 new studies during the first days of the campaign. One was with a woman who had a small cafe across the street from the Kingdom Hall. Elizabeth frequently stopped in her shop for tea or to purchase small items, and she decided to offer her a study using the direct approach. They watched the video, "Welcome to your Bible study," and the woman was delighted. She said, "We should start right now." She also included her daughter and her niece in the demonstration of the study. Elizabeth was very pleased that she also attended a congregation meeting. When asked what she thought of the meeting, the woman said, "That's what I love about Jehovah's Witnesses. They study the Bible. When I go to other churches, they just sing and preach, but don't study the Bible. I really loved it. I will try to come regularly."
This really made me laugh. I'll try to come regularly. Not promising anything, but I'm going to try to come regularly. So, yeah, again, is this really the best they can do? People agreeing to start Bible studies? And why did we need to know the age of that first guy? He was about 35. And look, I have to assume that these are true stories, but it feels sometimes in the way he delivers the story like he's just dropping in certain details to make it appear legitimate when possibly it's just completely made up. I don't know. But even assuming that it's not made up, what's the big deal? What really is the big deal? And again, we're talking about this brochure, Enjoy Life Forever, which has an accompanying book of the same title. Actually, the title or the title page of the book says Enjoy Life Forever, an interactive Bible course. So that's the way it's marketed to people, as an interactive Bible course. And yet we're going to see evidence in this update that it's not really that interactive. Before I launch back in, I hope, by the way, the quality's okay. It looks a little bit glitchy at this side, but hopefully you're all following along okay. Let me just scroll down. Movie Maker 96 says off topic, but today in the Watchtower article, it literally said, "Be careful of independent thinking. This organization keeps on getting crazier and crazier." Well, that's long been the line, isn't it? You're not allowed to think for yourself. You need to have it done for you. Ludovine Carmen Sarah Aicha Passau says, apply to them regarding religious freedom, the right to congregate and to worship, to preach and display their faith in public. Do they really not realize that they use Satan's tool in their favor? Again, that for me is jarring, the hypocrisy of declaring this to be Satan's system of things and therefore deserving of destruction, and yet to appeal to instruments of Satan's system of things when it suits them, and celebrate when instruments of Satan's system of things come to their rescue. Coulter Témoin de Jehovah says, who can believe that God only talks to 9 American men in Pennsylvania? I think that they live in New York, but yeah, you're right. It's 9 dudes in New York who are God's sole channel of communication with mankind. And Kikaru says he's like Let, but without the personality. You know what? Do I miss Let for these situations? I think Let's probably more entertaining, isn't he? But I feel like with Gage Fleegle, perhaps we're getting more of the true face of the organization. Gage Fleegle, Mark Sanderson, those are the ones who seem to kind of have more wits about them, if that makes sense. And they seem to me to be a little bit more... I get a bad feeling. What can I say? It's... Yeah. But let's crack on anyway, shall we, with the update. Speak to me, Gage. Speak to me.
We're happy to hear these positive experiences. Our time in the ministry is valuable, and we want to use it wisely. As 1 Corinthians 9, verse 26 says, "Therefore the way I am running is not aimlessly. The way I am aiming my blows is so as not to be striking the air." We love to give Jehovah our best. In addition to having a regular share in the house-to-house work, what else can help us? In some areas, publishers have many return visits. But perhaps we need to consider prayerfully if our return visits are productive. Are such individuals growing in their love of the truth? Do they truly appreciate our visits? Are they interested in a Bible study? If not, perhaps we're striking the air. It might be best to redirect our efforts. Those individuals will have another opportunity to hear the good news when the territories work again. Of course, balance, patience, and discernment are needed. But we want to be sure we're making the best use of our time. Similarly, we might ask ourselves, are my Bible students making progress? Prayerfully consider, are they accepting Bible truths? Are they beginning to apply what they learn and to make changes where needed? Have they begun to attend congregation meetings? Are they speaking with others about what they learn? If they're not progressing, it would be best to spend our time and energy seeking out those who are rightly disposed for everlasting life.
There's that phrase again, rightly disposed for everlasting life. If you're not interested in Jehovah's Witnesses, or if you start being interested and you stop being interested, or if you're not interested enough, it means that you aren't rightly disposed for everlasting life. And we've actually had an interesting comment while that was playing from Jason Broderick. If they're not conforming, move on. Well, that's the gist of it, isn't it? And how can you call it an interactive Bible study if the Bible study will be terminated by Jehovah's Witnesses based on such things as, are they accepting what they're learning? So you have to accept. You can't think for yourself. You can't have your own opinions when going through this. You have to accept what's in here, and you have to accept what you're told. And not only that, but you need to start telling others about it and going to the meetings. You have to invest. You have to do more than simply listen to them or have a conversation. So how is it interactive? It clearly comes with strings attached, and they will render the entire thing a waste of time arbitrarily and sever the study on their side if they're not satisfied that you're making the right noises or taking it seriously enough. So that, I think, is important context when we think about what he was saying earlier about all of these cherry-picked examples that probably happened but could be fictitious for all we know. he's giving all these examples of people who have started Bible studies, but what really is the value of a Bible study if you are essentially, if it's demanded of you that you just accept everything? And I think it's lesson 10. There's 60 odd lessons in the book that you study, and it's lesson 10 where they tell you start going to meetings. So they don't muck about. They don't waste any time in getting you to commit and buy into their demands. So yeah, it's all very, very irritating the way it's one message for people on the doorstep or at the carts, but another message entirely when he's talking to followers or his doting admirers.
So, brothers and sisters, let's continue to offer Bible studies at every opportunity. In many places around the world, we're seeing an increase of Bible studies and tremendous growth. For example, at a recent convention in Madagascar with over 21,000 in attendance, 419 were baptized. Also, the Philippines reports that during the 2024 service year, they had 5% growth. What's been the result? For the first time, they reported more than 260,000 publishers. The number of studies has grown to over 252,000, and 12,201 were baptized during the service year. 120 new congregations, 15 new circuits were formed. Amazing!
Amazing! So, yeah, Gage Fleegle there, really getting excited. It's almost as though he's being directed. It's like maybe he did one or two cuts before that, and like the assistant director or the producer's like, come on, Gage, you can give us more than that. We want to see some more enthusiasm. Amazing! I must, by the way, just thank Real Pumpkin J. Can I show? Yeah. Thank you for your super chat, Real Pumpkin J. It's big support, big help for the channel. People who aren't accepting may deconvert the preacher too. Waste no time. Don't ever listen to logical arguments. Very well put. And Beauty Rest also with a super chat. Thanks for all you do. I doubt that their experiences are true. Well, whether they are true or they're not true, I mean, whether they're true or not true, they're not very impressive, are they? But yeah, definitely agree with you. It's worth having a little bit of suspicion. And thank you again for your support of the channel. Going back to what Gage Fleegle was just saying about the Philippines, this again is cherry picking of numbers. He's just been talking about growth in terms of one country, and he's been talking earlier about how one country's special convention had more people attend than they expected. But again, when you actually bother to look at the published figures, so these are Jehovah's Witnesses figures that they are publishing on their website. Here's a list of all the countries, and these are the big countries. I'm not mentioning all of them, but these are like the bigger countries that were in negative in 2020 for the 2023 service report. Argentina, Australia, Croatia, Cuba, Ecuador, Greece, Guatemala, Haiti, New Zealand, Nicaragua, Paraguay, Serbia, Sri Lanka, and the good old US of A. That all of those countries, including the heartland of Jehovah's Witnesses, were in negative. Now, Gage Fleegle has every right to ignore all of those countries that were in negative and focus on the positive. I think we all do that to some degree, don't we? We all like to focus on the positives and ignore the negatives, but it's a bit more disingenuous when he's doing it in the context of his role as part of God's channel, trying to argue that this is proof of God's blessing. Because when you just objectively look at the figures, you can see that the growth is stagnant around the world and has been for a number of years now. When you factor in the birth-deaths ratio, it's probably in the negative. So I just find it infuriating, to be honest, the way they try to trick Jehovah's Witnesses, and indeed anyone watching this video, into thinking that this is a growing religion. There's like a boom period going on, and everyone's flocking to become Jehovah's Witnesses. I mean, if that's really the case, then I would accept that. You know, I would have to admit it, and I would think of it as a huge problem. But according to their numbers that they are publishing, that's just simply not going. That's not what's happening, and it's disingenuous of him to cherry pick certain countries like the Philippines, where for whatever reason locally they happen to be enjoying some successes. Let's get Gage back on our screens. Have I done something bad? Add to stage. There we are.
Wherever you may live, we think of Jesus' words at John 4, verse 35. Lift up your eyes and view the fields, that they are white for harvesting. Also, Jesus said to his disciples at Matthew 9, verses 37 and 38, yes, the harvest is great, but the workers are few. Therefore, beg the master of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest. The fields are certainly white for harvesting in many places around the world. Of course, that raises the question, how can we individually expand our share in the preaching and teaching work? Clearly, we each have different circumstances. But could you look for opportunities to serve as an auxiliary pioneer? Could you reach out and become a regular pioneer? If you're already pioneering, could you serve where there's a greater need, perhaps even in another land? Have you considered applying to attend the School for Kingdom Evangelizers? Some graduates of that school are used as temporary special pioneers, circuit overseers, and missionaries. Truly, there are so many opportunities to reach out in Jehovah's service according to our own individual circumstances. The book Organized to Do Jehovah's Will, chapter 10, discusses many ways we can expand our ministry. If we test Jehovah out in this way, we can be certain of his blessing.
Isn't there a Bible verse that says, "Thou shalt not put the Lord thy God to the test"? I don't know. But anyway, I just think it's interesting, this particular part of the update, in demonstrating that when you are one of Jehovah's Witnesses, enough is never enough. You know, he talks about circumstances, but realistically, if you're a Jehovah's Witness watching this and you're not stricken with some illness that keeps you in your bed all the time, or means that you can't go out, or if you're not like really, really old and unable to move or whatever, if you, in other words, if you have the ability to do all of the things that he's just said, how are you not going to feel guilty if you're not doing those things? You know, no matter what he says about circumstances, you're going to be thinking, oh, I need to be doing more. And the funny thing is that there's seemingly no end to it. So you could become an auxiliary pioneer, but then you'd be feeling bad that you're not a pioneer. If you could be a pioneer, but still be feeling bad that you're not applying for SKE. You could go to SKE and still feel bad that you're not applying for Bethel. It just goes on and on and on, doesn't it? There's always another rung of the ladder that you should really be aiming for. And I think that's one of the most exhausting things about being a Jehovah's Witness is just this never-ending hamster wheel of constantly trying to do better. And you can never, ever reach a point where it's like, I'm on top of this. I'm doing enough. Jehovah is happy with what I'm doing. So when Armageddon comes, I'm going to be fine. You know, no fireball with Lloyd written on it. When Armageddon comes, brilliant. You never get that satisfaction as a Jehovah's Witness. You are always looking over your shoulder, looking at others in the congregation and seeing what they're doing and thinking, I could be doing better. Look at what they're doing. I should be doing that as well. And just that short part of that short segment in the update was a perfect example of how they continually guilt Jehovah's Witnesses into doing more. Before we take the final clip, let's go through some more comments. Arthur Weber, JW Watch team member, says expanding your ministry can also be interpreted as expanding your activism. Be more involved in debunking the cult. There's a call to action from my fellow JW Watch team member. Envy and Greed says, it's so hard to tell if all of these guys are just grasping for control or if they actually believe in their cause. It will be fascinating to pick at their brain while they can't tell lies. Yeah, this is a subject or a question that I've bounced around a few times on this channel. And ultimately, I keep coming back to it's complicated, it's nuanced. When it comes to human psychology, unfortunately, it's possible to entertain in one's brain two completely conflicting positions. We call it cognitive dissonance. It's painful to go through and experience, and it's very uncomfortable, but you can simultaneously be thinking, really, this is a load of nonsense, and at the same time, I'm in God's one true organization. And I think that for the governing body members, there's a whole other dynamic of they have risen to a position of authority through divine providence. They have clearly, in their minds, they will be thinking, God must think I'm special, so therefore I am special. And so it's just this, they just get locked in this circular logic of this must be God's organization because I've been selected to be part of the leadership, and clearly God thinks I'm special, so his organization must be special too, and so on and so forth. It's complicated, and I agree. It would be lovely to just sit down and have an honest, candid conversation with one of them when they're off the record or they don't fear the consequences, but it's just impossible for us to do that, isn't it, really? And Emily Solomon Davis says, definitely not getting the whole story with the experiences. I think that's referring to the Bible study experiences, including an experience with one man who was about 35. Movie Man 96, have I read this already? If they don't come to the Kingdom Hall, just flat out cancel this study. It's not going anywhere. Yeah. So many interesting little morsels in today's update, or the most recent update. Let's get the final few moments of it, shall we? Speak to me, Gage.
So what have we discussed? Keep the momentum of our special campaign going. Continue to offer Bible studies at every opportunity. We also discussed the thrilling increases we're seeing in many parts of the world. May we all continue to pray that the Master sends out more workers into the harvest. And may we continue to do our personal best to preach and teach the good news of the kingdom. Be assured that we cherish each and every one of you, dear brothers and sisters. From the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses, this is JW Broadcasting.
There we go. So it's nice to know that we're cherished, isn't it? But I think, well, I know he specifically said brothers and sisters. So you have to be a Jehovah's Witness, unfortunately, in order to be cherished by Gage Fleegle, which is a bit of a shame. I'd quite like to be cherished by him. Give him a bit of a hug and just, say, are you okay, Gage? Do you ever feel a little bit of conflict in you? So, yeah, I don't know what to say. Lots to unpack there. Emily Solomon Davis says, definitely makes one feel depressed when you're told to do more than you are already doing. Absolutely agree with you 100%. Drench says, when I ask why are you selling off the Kingdom Hall, he said it's because they are building new ones, like where in Jamaica are you building it? His brother bought one and turned it into an Airbnb. That would be a fun Airbnb to stay at, wouldn't it? An old Kingdom Hall. Oh dear. So thank you so much, by the way, to all of the comments. It's nice to see more than 200 currently watching live, and I'm sure there will be many more watching in the days to come. And again, just an interesting little update. I'm going to try and do more of these live streams because I have been kind of largely not watching them, if I'm honest. I will cover an update if there is like a significant announcement, such as when they were talking about the changes to shunning, beards, etc. But not every update is going to have like a groundbreaking announcement or a groundbreaking change. But you still do get these little morsels that give you some kind of clue, some kind of insight into what life as a Jehovah's Witness is really all about. And I think we've had a few of those here, and we've also had some interesting examples of a governing body member being quite shady and disingenuous in cherry-picking figures that make the organization look good, in having it both ways when it comes to reporting on quote-unquote legal updates. And yeah, it's when you need to employ trickery or coercion of any kind, you have to ask, how can it be true? How can this be something that's worth people investing in if they need to be at all two-faced about it? If for example, they're going around persuading people to start Bible studies that are, quote, interactive, and then arbitrarily cancelling them if people don't accept what they're being told, how can all of this really be God's one and only true religion? How would God approve, a loving, wise God, how would he approve of these sorts of shady tactics? So I hope you found this live stream interesting and engaging and helpful. I will again try to do more of them in the future as there are more updates. I have a busy month ahead of me in October because we have the annual meeting coming up, and I will try to jump right on top of that and get you guys a rebuttal to what gets said in just a few days now at the 2024 annual meeting. But that's everything. That's all I have for you. I hope you've enjoyed this live stream. A big shout out to my patrons and YouTube channel members who support this channel and make it possible for me to do the work that I'm doing. But that's all I really have time for. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.